Hello, Abigail here with the Tarotscopes for Pisces season, Leo sun, moon, and rising. All right, my Leos, this Pisces season is something else because we have so much going on. It really does kick off in March, but we do have a few things that happen before then as we kind of straddle the months in our zodiac seasons. I have done a video that's more in depth about this, but I do want to cover it just kind of in the context of you all and like what this means for you specifically, anyone with Leo placements. There's not a whole lot happening in Leo, but there's a lot of stuff happening adjacent that's putting you all through it. Um, that full moon in Leo was kind of the first big moment we've had since that Mars retrograde moment back earlier this year in December. And we're not really going to get another one until it goes back in a couple more seasons. Doesn't mean things aren't happening. I do think you're under a lot of pressure and transformation, especially since the Venus retrograde and the Mercury retrograde are trine you all. It's a really big deal for you. And also, we're in an inconjunct season for you, basically. So, an inconjunct is when it's that sign that doesn't get any aspects to your sign. So, Pisces season, you don't really have any aspects directly to Leo, and it can leave a sense and a feeling of disembodiment, or you have to take kind of different routes to get to where you're going because you're not directly connected. You have to take bridges, ferries, cross oceans with Pisces, of course, to get to where you're going. And it does feel like there's a sense of frustration for you. So we have the Mars stationing direct, which is great. We have Mars stationing direct on the 23rd, 5 days after we enter Pisces season. This is going to make everyone feel better. This is another sign that is not, it's next to Leo, but you don't have any like aspect technically, or at least the ones that I use. Um, but it's been doing a lot and the most, and this cycle is deeply connected to you just because of, excuse me, I've told everyone today in these recordings, I'm taking a new pre and probiotic, and it's the first time it's tried to get one of these has tried to kill me. Um, Anyways, so Mars stationing direct is a big deal. No, does it rule Leo is exalted in Leo? No. However, it is a really intense moment. Mars is a fire energy, Leo is fire energy, and you're going to feel relief, but also Mars will be heading into your sign later this year. So keep that in mind for what it will. Then we have that new moon in Pisces, which I think is going to be really refreshing for everyone. That's on the 27th. Venus retrograde starts March 1st. This is going to be really intense. We have Mercury going into Aries 3 days later. We have that total lunar eclipse on the 14th, which is in Virgo. Another one of those kind of side by side moments, but deeply affecting you regardless, because our charts contain multitudes. Even if there's not a planet there, that house affects you, that zodiac sign affects you. And then the day after, we have Mercury stationing retrograde. And so it'll be stationed as we experience that um, total lunar eclipse. So there's a lot of interesting energy. Then we move into Aries season, which is a trine season. So a lot of stuff is going to kick off. But it feels, especially looking at the cards, that this season is a lot about processing for you, about really sitting with, and I guess accepting might be an okay word, but really kind of understanding and integrating your journey so far, and sitting with the consequences of things. And when I'm talking about consequences, there are good consequences and bad consequences. The word consequence is actually neutral. Um, but yeah, you're really processing a lot. Also, I think your oracle card is really interesting. And I think there's a lot to be said for this one. So let's get into it. So this is from the Lost Oracle deck by Fiona Horn, and it is Stardust and Soil Opposites Attract, which I find interesting. I also think this directly really speaks to Pluto now being opposed your sign and going to be there till 2043. I know. Thrilling to look at, what is it now, 18 years from now? And that push and pull that you're going to be going through. But I think it's important to notice that it's not all bad. It's going to bring out some really deep, rich themes in your life. And while not all of them will be easy, Pluto's work is lasting and, in a weird, twisted way, deeply fulfilling. I also think that the moments in this season that you find the most grating and I don't want to say upsetting, but unsettling, I think you're going to look back and find that they are actually, it was a really fulfilling moment for you, that there was something in there that while it was uncomfortable and in opposition, there was a deep, rich something being started. And I love the idea of like stardust and soil, this really kind of elevated cosmic energy coming to this really grounded, mundane, dirty, rich growth. It feels like in this season we're kind of pulling together a bunch of ideas and really starting to understand what they were and what they mean. Um, I like the card we start off with. I'm not saying that I dislike the rest, but we do have some say struggles. It sounds so negative. I try not to be too positive and sugarcoat things, and then I also try not to be too negative because we all need hope. And this season, it's really hard not to live in these extremes. But we do start off with a Three of Cups. And I think it's interesting that, your Oracle card talks about opposites attracting. I think you're going to find a lot of fulfillment in connections that you're like, we don't really have anything in common, but we get along so well. Like we're complete opposites, but we're really supportive and able to be there for the other person. So don't dismiss or discount people who maybe in the past you wouldn't have vibed with, who all of a sudden you do. Um, I think you should really invest in these relationships. And these are the things that are going to get you through this season. Eclipse season is always tough. Some people feel things on the eclipses, but that it's really the portal that seems to get everyone. It's so the um, total lunar eclipse is on the 14th of March, and then the partial solar eclipse in Aries is on the 28th of March. So between those two times, it's gonna be real sticky. And obviously, we're moving into Aries season, but I think it's important for you to know and to make plans based on that. But yeah, you're really going to need to call in your people. You're really going to need to connect. I think the people that you find most supportive in this season are going to be unexpected. Kind of going back to our Oracle card, they're going to be the people that you're like, wow, I expected X, Y, and Z to really show up. But the people who really showed up were these kind of outliers that, I see every so often. And then all of a sudden, bang, we are really connected and on the same page and are, so much more compatible than I ever imagined. But you're really going to need to dig deep and to tap in and connect with your friends, with your groups, with, the people who you hang out with the most. It's going to really help sustain you and give you perspective in a season that's, to be honest, not going to be easy or simple. Doesn't mean it's not going to be valuable. It doesn't mean there aren't beautiful things in there, but it is going to be tricky. Part of the reason to keep your friends close, and I'm really tempted to pull our final card because this kind of feels pertinent. I think I will. I'll pull it out of order. I think the reason we need to keep our friends close is partially because some people are going to be playing around. We got a Five of Swords and a Seven of Swords. I don't always see the Seven of Swords as like direct betrayal by people, but I think some people who we might be close to are going to be sowing some seeds of something. They're not going to be really working in your best interest. Like I said, I pulled this off the bottom of the deck. I usually read this card last, but it just feels right to put it with the five. There's people going to be picking fights for various reasons. There's people who are not going to be honest about their motivation. We want to, of course, take people at their word, but we are going to have to use some discernment. And also, if someone else warns you about someone, put that away and be like, okay, I appreciate that. And then, just be aware as you move forward. It's also just a reminder that not everything is as it seems. I think a lot of people, especially with this Five of Swords, are going to be picking fights because they don't know how to process their emotions. And it's a reminder that you don't need to process those feelings for them. And it's also a reminder of what is the cost of a fight? Is it worth it to engage with certain people? And sometimes it is 100% worth it. Sometimes we need to have really hard conversations and we need to challenge people and stand up for our beliefs. Absolutely. But, based on how the energy is and how conflicted things are going to feel and the fact that people are messing around, there are some fights that are not going to be worth it. Doesn't mean you lost, doesn't mean that you're not right. But it does mean that maybe you don't need to get involved every time someone kicks up dust this season. Um, Also, no is a complete sentence. You can choose to not engage with someone. You can also say, hey, I don't agree with you, and leave it at that. Funnily enough, when you do that to certain people, they're like, and now I'm going to debate you, and we're going to talk, and I'm going to not know how to argue, and I'm going to use demeaning words. No, you don't have to deal with that. Just say, no, I'm not going to argue with you, but you are wrong. This is not true. Makes me think a lot about the political climate where a lot of people want to argue human rights. As like, there's not an argument. That's a human right. Everyone deserves to be safe. Everyone deserves home. Everyone deserves food. Everyone deserves healthcare. Everyone deserves to be respected and honored regardless of their status in this country, or any country. You don't need to argue that all the time. Now, you can have a discussion. There are some people who are going to be open to that, but be, thoughtful as to where you put your energy and who you engage with, because some of those battles are worth fighting and some of them are not. And you can just be like, I don't agree with you. I think you're wrong. And I also think that's a horrible take. But I'm not going to fight you on it because you clearly enjoy being hateful. And you'll know when someone is approaching you genuinely. You're going to know in this season when someone is being honest. You just have to kind of check in with your gut first. Um, And like I said, also reference your friends, stick together, make sure that you're communicating and talking with people who are like minded when you are engaging with people who are not, just so that you don't get really, really down, because it's going to be hard to, have these discussions and then be like, wow, the world's a horrible place and people I thought were better people really suck. So, you know, make space for that disappointment. We do it with the Five of Cups. There is disappointment here. There is a sense of loss. It does feel with the Venus retrograde that some things are going to come to light that are disappointing and really sad and require grief. And, no matter how many cups you have stored away, doesn't mean you don't get to grieve the cups that are now empty and dumped out and ruined. Um, and I think these things might heal on the other side of the Venus retrograde, but in the Venus retrograde, you're going to have to fully grieve them. And you're going to have to face your disappointment and sense of, honestly, this card's all over the place, sense of betrayal of someone who has used you um, for their own means, who have only been friends with you because they saw external things that they could get from you. I find this with a lot of Leos because of that sun energy. A lot of people are like, if I stand close enough to them, I too shall become sparkly. And then they don't, because that's a personal thing. And then they get mad and jealous. And it's really upsetting to realize that someone has been around you and has been engaging with you because they wanted something from you. And believe me, I truly believe that all adult relationships are transactional. Besides children, I don't believe even adult children should have transactional relationships with their parents. In the sense of, like, if you're giving something to your child, you shouldn't hold it over their head. Not that there aren't transactions. Um, but, it is still disappointing when someone is there for, like, just the transaction. My relationship with my partner is transactional. If I'm not a good partner, and if I don't, you know, if I'm not thoughtful and don't care for my partner, then yeah, that I have broken our transaction. If they don't do the same for me, then they have broken their end of the transaction. Doesn't mean it's any less loving, but it's still really hurtful when we realize that it literally was only for what they could get from us. And I think that is going to happen in this season. Also, because our last Venus retrograde was in Leo, um, what was that? 2023 was in Leo in 2023. We're back again in a fire sign. And so I think a lot of those kind of Leo Venus things, if there's any kind of unresolved moments from that time, they'll come back in and we're going to have to reprocess some grief. But I do enjoy the card that we're kind of going to wrap this up with. It's really beautiful. And I think it's a nice kind of moment of hope, considering we do have fives in the middle, is this King of Wands. Really beautiful moment of power and drive and an affirmation of who you are. And I think it's also this moment of you having processed so much and kind of coming to your own through your experiences, through disappointments, and through exciting, wonderful things that have happened, and recognizing where your power is. It also feels, it really does tie back to our stardust and soil opposites attract moment, where it's really a full circle moment. I also really love how in this card we have that snake eating its tail, which is this idea of kind of perpetual cycles. Um, you know, this power and strength is both the result of really hard things and really beautiful things. And either of those things does not make your experience either less or more. It just makes it what it is. And you get to take what you have experienced and your dreams and desires, and you get to really step into yourself in spite of whatever's happened. And being in a position of power and having grace and compassion. Oh my goodness, I really just noticed that and I've had this deck for forever. I just noticed that he has, his leg has been amputated and he's disabled. Aw, I love this deck. I love its representation. It has a lot of nods to disability in it that really make my heart sing, as well as trans themes. This is and I always get their name wrong because I'm dyslexic, but it's the Fyodor Pavlov, I believe, deck. Absolutely stunning and beautiful. He has, and now I can't remember the word for what it's called, but he has a wooden leg. And I think that goes along with our theme of being kind of a culmination of your experiences, regardless of what they are, regardless of whether they are perceived as one thing or as something else. There's a really beautiful sense in this season of both the good and the bad coming together to make you the person that you are and to have given you the experiences that you have. And it's a beautiful moment of acceptance and power and resilience and joy all wrapped up into one. And no, it's not going to be easy. People are going to be on their BS, doing all the things that they should not do, being sneaky. It also feels that maybe someone close to you who isn't really being sneaky is just not able to share their experience now, which can feel like a betrayal, but make sure that you give them that space and grace. Coming back to this Three of Cups, yeah, some people are being sneaky and contrary and, really disappointing, but you also have to trust your friends. You also have to believe in them. And if they're not able to share with you right now, you can still offer them support and tell them that you love them. Um, so, yeah, I think if I want you to take anything away from this, not everything is as it seems this season, but not everything that isn't as it seems is necessarily bad. Sometimes the opposite of what we want ends up being the most beautiful and fulfilling thing. As someone who has never gotten exactly what they wanted, but has ended up with some really beautiful things in life, you know, it can be disappointing to constantly see yourself getting stuff not in the way that you wanted and not quite in the form that you wanted. But oftentimes, those things are exactly what we needed. And it's a specific kind of soul who does this. You may be someone who gets exactly what you want. But I think in this season, even if you do normally, you're going to feel a little bit, you're going to be like, what's wrong? Normally things work out. Well, things are happening. So yeah, and also hang on to this King of Wands. You are powerful and fiery and brave, and regardless of what this season brings, you are a combination of your parts, and all of those beautiful individual quirky or difficult or stunning or easy parts make you the powerful being that you are, and make you, I don't want to say deserving because everyone is deserving of what they have, but make you really prepared and strong for all the good things that will also come with all of the difficult things that life brings. Anyways, my Leos, that is my reading for you. It's going to be a tricky Pisces season. Be aware that a lot of good things are going to look different than you are usually expecting it to, and a lot of bad things might look great to start with. So take things slowly. There's no reason to rush. The universe will be expediting stuff, especially in eclipse season. You don't have to. Anyways, I will see you all in a different space and time. Feel free to comment if you have any questions or clarifications that you need or just want to comment. I love it when people say hi. And also, please like and subscribe. It makes me feel really good and um, gives me some joy. And blessed Pisces season. I'm excited for you, even though it's going to be tricky.